The opinions expressed on this program are those of the program hosts and guests and not necessarily those of this station, management, staff, or sponsors. WPSL does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WPSL.
It's 11:06 at WPSL 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast, and welcome to a brand new show, the first of 150,000 Sun Palm Financial broadcasts with Liliana and Dave Cummings. Good morning, guys.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Sun Palm Financial broadcast, everybody. We're here to talk all things money. I'm your host, Dee Thomas. My friends and clients call me Dave. And I'm also here with my co-host, Sandra Liliana. And we're broadcasting live from the Treasure Coast of Florida. We're also heard worldwide on Alexa, Google Home, and the TuneIn app.
Good morning. Today's topic is Social Security. Will it be there when you retire? Is the system in jeopardy for people who are currently retired? We want to know what you think. Call us at 772-340-1590. That is 772-340-1590. Now, before getting started, I wanted to advise that we may be making some financial suggestions in the broadcast. So a quick disclaimer. The information and opinions contained in this broadcast have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable. They are given for informational purposes only. The information is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions or a solicitation to sell. Okay, now to the topic. U.S. Social Security benefits. What is it?
All right, so we all kind of have a general idea of what Social Security is. So the focus that we're going to have today is on the retirement component of this thing. So naturally, Social Security is something that you pay into for your entire life. It's automatically taken out of your paycheck each pay period. And of course, it's not a discretionary budget item. What that essentially means is when Congress, they go to vote about what they're going to spend on, this is not supposed to be one of them. This is an entitlement. So in other words, you paid into it, you earned it. Now, while we go into this topic, we've heavily researched it to make as much of the information current for 2024 and also to kind of get the latest and greatest on the stats. So some of this information is going to come directly from Social Security Administration. Others are going to be quoted from different studies and so forth. So we'll be using some of that research throughout the program. So when we're talking about Social Security benefits, essentially what that means is it's typically the benefits done by computing an average index monthly earning, and this average summarizes up to 35 years of a worker's index earnings, and they apply this formula to compute what's called the PIA, or the primary insurance amount, and that is the basis for the benefits that are paid to an individual.
Now, we are aware that there are other aspects of Social Security, such as the SSI program for those with low income, disability, and death benefits, and survivor benefits. But we are not talking about those today. Our conversation is focused on the retirement income portion.
Right. And based on the Social Security Administration, just want to make this clear, you don't just automatically get it, right? So there are some things that you have to do to qualify. So they refer to these as credits. And so essentially what happens is, for an example, if you earn $1,730 of wages or self-employment income, once you've earned $6,920, you've earned 4 credits for the year. Most people need up to 40 credits earned over their working lifetime to receive retirement benefits. So for disability survivors benefits, young people may need fewer credits to be eligible, but that's just kind of the basis for how they factor these benefits that you'll be getting later on, or will we be getting them later on?
Social Security benefits are not designed to be your only source of retirement income, so plan well. Go to sunpalmfinancial.com, click on schedule a meeting, and meet with us. Pick an available time and schedule a call with us to make some recommendations. You can presently begin taking retirement benefits early for a reduced benefit. You can take it at full retirement age for a full benefit, or you can take it later for a higher draw.
All right, so Sandra, let's talk about this for a minute, because this is the most important question that a lot of people have to face. Do I take the early draw, Do I wait for the full retirement? Or do I want to put it off as long as I can? That way I'm getting the most money per month. Because if you think about it, once you invoke these Social Security benefits and they start rolling in, that's pretty much your permanent solution, at least from that part of your retirement income. So what should they do? What are the numbers? Give us the current numbers. What's early, what's full, and what's the delayed?
So 62 is early, 67 is full, 70 is delayed, maximum age to claim benefits. So I would say that it all depends if the actual people they're investing in diversified things, then they can actually wait a little bit longer. It all depends how much they have prepared for their retirement.
Right. And, I noticed there's a very important component here, and it's something that we have to talk about, which is uncomfortable, but it's just our reality. They have the early, the full, and the delayed for a reason. So why do we think they do that? Well, frankly, they're hoping that you die because once you pass away, your benefits go away with you. Now, there are some aspects of it that will pass on to your survivors, but that full benefit that you would be gaining, or that, early withdrawal or whatever, if you were to die, for instance, prior to even getting to retirement, what happens to that fund? It just kind of disappears into nowhere. You really don't get it. Your loved ones will get a survivor benefit or something of this nature, and there's some other things that can kick in, but overall, you've paid into a system your whole life that you're not going to be able to access, and essentially no one else will. So
It's in the magic lockbox, right?
exactly. So it is in the magic lockbox. When we're talking about the length of this thing, should we take it early? Should we take it at full? Should we take it at delayed? This is also where we're going to have to really consider what is the average life expectancy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we decided to go and look at the numbers here. Now, these are from the Social Security Administration, and they're the most up-to-date numbers that we have for 2020, I think, is when they were published. Now, keep in mind, there was a COVID went through this period of time and whatnot, so they may be a little bit different. But basically, the mortality rate, men are expected to live up to just after 74 years old, and women 79, almost 80. Now, we all know that men do crazy things. That's why we die early, right? Motorcycles and jump out of airplanes, crazy stuff like this, right? But taking all that aside, think about what we just said. If you wait until you're delayed, your last maximum age cutoff, if you want to call it that, to start taking your benefits, you've got about 4 years of life, if you're a guy, essentially, to retire and enjoy your life, and then off you go into the Neverland. So this is something to really think about. Now, if you pull them early, obviously you're looking at somewhere around a 30% hit to your check that comes in, and that's a big hit. So that's just a couple of the numbers. So how many years you live versus how many years you'll have of retirement, getting that check is something that has to really be factored in.
So also couples need to know that even though both people have actually put into the system, if one of the people in the actual couple, the husband or wife pass away, you're not able to collect the money that your spouse was actually collecting plus your amount. It's either one of the two. You're not able to actually receive both payouts throughout the rest of the life of the surviving spouse. So that's very important to keep in mind.
Right. I think that if the spouse passes away when they've both gone into retirement, I think if it's at the full age of retirement, I believe the way it works is they would get 50% of their spouses. But if the spouse, for instance, took it early, then they would only receive that portion. So that 30% drop would kick in there. So this is something that's really important. If we were to just stop the show right here, I think that's a very important thing to factor in when you're talking about preparing for your retirement. So, do you want to take it early? Do you want to take it late? How long do you think you're going to live? And then, of course, what happens if the spouse dies prior to going into or, after you collect benefits and so on.
So based on your current projections, is Social Security going to run out?
All right, so this is the question of the century, and we have done extensive research on this topic, and we're going to bring it to you today. Now, I'm going to warn you in advance, by the time we're done talking about this part of the show, you're going to have pitchforks and you're going to create a mob and you're going to go storm your congressman's office, and you're going to have a pretty well. I won't tell you what to do. Just keep it calm. All right, people. So this is the actual numbers. Okay. This is the projection from the Social Security Board of Trustees on their current 2023 product that they produced. And here's what they said. Yes, Social Security is going to run out. It will become insolvent. Are you ready for this? In 2034, 10 years from now. So in 2034, it will be done. Now, before you freak out and go crazy, there's something else that's also in the report, that it talks about those who are currently in the process that are paying into the system can support 78% of those who will be taking Social Security and will still receive benefits from those currently working. So the problem that we're looking at here, first of all, is, okay, let's just say it doesn't run out. Let's just say, 78% of benefits are being able to be paid by the next generation. What about those 20%? What happens to them? Who's it going to be, right? And this is a big concern. 20% of the population of who's going to be taking the Social Security benefit. That's a lot of people. Do you want it to be you? I sure don't want it to be me. Yeah. So this is a real problem. Now, there are a couple of recommendations that have been put forth over the years, and we're going to talk about them. They have kind of really essentially 5 basic solutions to this. So we're going to talk about them briefly. And then after that, we're going to head off to a break. But let's talk about them. So some of the changes that they have recommended are, first off, changing the cost of living increases. They call it COLA, right? So cost of living is essentially, hey, this is how much it costs to live now, so you get a little bump up. Well, if they change that to not give you as much, well, that's one way of saving some of the money for the program. Another thing they can do is just frankly increase taxes, that thing that we just love so much, right? And essentially they'll be taking more out of your paycheck in order to fund the Social Security fund. The other thing that they're talking about is increase contributions to the benefit base. Now, that first, most of us have no idea what that's talking about. So essentially what happens is, based on your income, there's a certain amount that they would go ahead and put towards it. And they can increase that amount to get more money into the system, right? Or they could just uncap it entirely. So that's one other solution that they've been talking about. Now, another one is they could reduce your payout by a percentage. So let's say you're getting, I don't know, $2,000 a month. Well, they may drop that 20%, right? That's a pretty big hit for a retiree, 20%, especially as we're in a world where everything is always growing.
I was going to say, with the inflation, that would be a hit.
Absolutely. And, talking about inflation, when we're looking at planning for retirement, most people are right now who are listening are pulling their hair out, because when you look at retirement planning, you understand that taxes will increase, you understand that cost of living will increase, but you kind of have a trend over time that you can say, hey, it's increasing by a certain amount, it's going up just a little bit here, a little bit, and you can kind of throw a percentage out there and kind of plan for that buffer. No one, and I mean no one, could have prepared current retirees for the increases that we have seen. I'll just give a couple for instances. Here in Florida, we have insurance has quadrupled, not doubled, not tripled, has quadrupled in the past 2 years. And there's no end in sight. We see very little action from our representatives to fix this. Now, if you have a house in Florida, not only do you have your mortgage, but now you have another mortgage called taxes, and you have another mortgage called insurance. And let's not talk about the last mortgage, which is utilities. Utilities have doubled in some cases in just the past couple of years. This is catastrophic for a lot of people. We get calls at Sun Palm Financial all the time for people who are really in a spot and they're like, what should I do? How could I recoup or offset some of these increases? And it's a real problem. And the reason why is because they're on a fixed income, obviously. So you're not going to like the last suggestion that they've made here. the last suggestion that they're always talking about is to change the full retirement age. In other words, we're going to make you wait longer before you can start collecting your benefits. Now, let's do the math here. If the average retirement age, let's say, is already at 67, 70 years old for the max, and you're only going to live 4 years after that as an expectancy as a man, 78 as a female, you've worked your entire life to have just a couple years of retirement. It's insane. So when we hear these kinds of recommendations being put forth by both parties, by the way, I don't want to get political, so I want to make sure that everyone understands, you know, when it comes to the political aspect of thing, we try to stay apolitical, but if it involves policies that affect our money, of course, we call it out, right? So in this case, we've had both parties have put forth these kinds of solutions, and we'll be talking in a little bit about one of the last changes when they did this increase, because it used to be 65 was the retirement age, got bumped up to 67. We'll be hitting that in just a minute. So what we're going to do next, we're going to go into a break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about some of these changes that have been made in the past and how we got to where we are. And so stay tuned. And again, if you'd like to reach out to us, give us a call. We would like to know what you think. Do you think Social Security will be there for us when we get to it? Do you think that right now it's in jeopardy? Give us a call, 772-340-1590. And this is February the 7th, 2024, coming to you live, Eastern Standard Time, 11:22.
You're on the Sun Palm Financial Broadcast. We'll be back.
Dreams. What do your dreams look like? And how far are you willing to chase them before giving up? Or are you willing to stay the course to achieve them? Do you dare believe? Are you willing to work for them, strive hard, to never give up until they are realized? Are your dreams worth chasing? Well, if they are, welcome to Sun Palm Financial, a place where dreams become a reality. Whether your dream is to grow and to thrive towards the good life, or to simply experience freedom through financial security, come share your dreams with us. Sun Palm Financial. Invest, grow, protect. sunpalmfinancial.com.
Old money. Why is old money respected more than new? It's not because new money spends their fortunes outrageously and the old money gets jealous. Old money is respected because it has grown over time and is maintained over many, many generations. You see, most new money will be blown eventually or wasted by the second generation, and the descendants of new money just get poorer and poorer after that. But at Sun Palm Financial, we'll help you to create generational wealth that will grow with each new chapter. So if you've been fortunate enough to come into some new money, or right now to schedule your free consultation so that you can join the old club. Sun Palm Financial. Invest, grow, protect. sunpalmfinancial.com.
All right, welcome back to the Sun Palm Financial Broadcast, where we talk all things money. I'm your host, Dee Thomas, and I'm also here with my co-host, Sandra Liliana, and we're talking about Social Security.
We know this too.
And the question of the day is going to be, is it going to be there when you're ready to retire? Also, are the current benefits in jeopardy? So we hit on a couple really important details in our research. And of course, some of these things were a bit alarming. We talked about how these projection by the Social Security Board of Trustees says that basically the fund will be insolvent by 2034. However, they're also implying that with the current people that will be stepping into the workforce and those who are presently in the workforce, we'll be able to support about 78% of those who will be taking benefits from those who are currently working. So not a really good situation to find ourselves in. We also talked about some of the recommendations to fix the system. They talked about cost of living increases, increasing your taxes, increasing the contribution to the benefit base, also reducing your payout by a percentage, and last but not least, changing the full retirement age. Now, who makes these decisions? Well, your Congress, your senators, these are the folks who make their decisions. So let's talk about the last time that we saw some changes and how did we even get here, Sandra?
Well, the full retirement age used to be 65, but in 1983, they realized they would have to increase the age to pay off benefits of what the government borrowed against the fund. So they increased the full retirement age to 67 for those who were born after 1960. That phase started in 2022.
That's right. So basically, those of us in Generation X, once 2022 came, it kind of phased in. So now your retirement age, your full retirement age is 67, used to be 65. Now, ironically, also, right into 2022, the House of Representatives actually approved a retirement bill that would push out that age for the required minimum distributions on certain savings account to 75, up from the current age of 72 and others. So that change, if it had passed the Senate, would have gradually phased in by 2032, which is just short of when the other is going to run out. So obviously, they're paying attention to this and they're trying to see what they can do to fix it. But I have to make a really important point here. First of all, there's a great research that was done here. I'm going to quote it here. So, and I hope I don't butcher his name. John Elasser, founder and president of Covisum, a provider of Social Security claiming software, says for each year that they increase the age, those paying into it lose 5% of their benefit that they are entitled to. So for that 1 year increase, you're looking at a loss of 5%. That's a big number. So if they're talking about bumping it up by 5 years or a few years, it's a big hit. Now, it's also important to remember that Congress essentially does not even fall under the rules that they are creating for the rest of us. Congressmen, senators, if they've been in office, I think it's 6 years, they get a retirement, right? And so essentially, they're not going to have to live under these same Social Security rules that are being imposed on the rest of us. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's hair pulling is what it is. So what do you do?
So how did we get here? In an archived speech from May 19, 2005 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, George Bush stated, quote, "The government has borrowed 1.7 trillion from the Social Security Trust Fund. The government has borrowed the total value of the trust fund to pay for other government spending.
Wow.
Beginning in 2017, the government will have to begin backing up these paper promises with real money," end of quote.
Wait a minute, the magic lockbox was broken into?
Yeah, so really, really important point she just made there. Think about this. So George Bush is quoted, I'm going to repeat that because it's some really incredible thing. He said that the government has borrowed 1.7 trillion with a T from Social Security Trust Fund. And this is back in 2005 when he was quoted on May 15th, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And he was talking to a group of young workers talking about how we can, help the system and what we need to do to kind of keep it there for the future generation. So this is in 2005, right? So he's talking in 2005 about our trust fund for Social Security has been borrowed against and depleted essentially by the government to pay for government programs and government budgets and these sort of things. And so really the mindset used to be, at least the promise was, that as we work, we're paying into the system. As we're paying into the system, we can expect certain things to be there for us when we get there. Now, what they've done is they've borrowed against what we've paid into the system, and they're just kind of hoping and kicking the can down the road that the next generation, oh, that's no problem, they're going to be working and they're going to be taxed, and that will just keep it rolling. But the question is, will it? And the way it's looking right now, it doesn't appear to be. Now, if you're right now, you're probably really angry and you should be. You should be upset, right? Every time the government spends money for some program or to fund itself or to send aid overseas, essentially, they could be stealing it from you. And when they can't pay it back, they want you to take a benefit hit, right? They want you to take less benefits from what you paid into the system based on a promise. And now we have an even greater situation where they can't even fund themselves. This is why, as you've been noticing, they get together and they have this thing where, oh, we need to fund the government. We need to increase the debt limit. And if you want to go look at some numbers, which will just wreck you, you can go to, I think it's debtclock.com or something like this, and you can look at the numbers right now, and it's pretty scary. I also want to mention, also notice how all of their solutions to the problem that they created for you, basically to get less than what you promised, all of those are you taking a hit, right? It's never something that can be that they or the government or some other entities can take a hit. It's always you, even though you paid into it. So we have a few solutions that we'll just throw out there, some ways that other people, and we've also thought about in some detail, that could maybe shore this thing up. And it's something to think about and kind of bring into the conversation. So I'm going to throw out a few, okay? And I'd like your feedback. Give us a call when you reach out to us, 772-340-1590. All right, so a couple ideas. So you've heard them say to cut down this massive government that they've created. That would be one big solution, I guess you could say. Instead of growing the government, how about we start reducing the government? Right? So all these costs that are being taken, what do we want to do? We want to kind of reduce the size of government. By reducing the size of government, you're reducing the cost, and you have a much better opportunity to take some of those funds and to pay them back. So I say we cut some federal agencies and move those funds back into the Social Security. There's another one that I'm going to talk about, which I'll get a big cheer from around the world. Are you ready? Cut congressional pensions and take all of those funds. Just exactly. I got a chuckle here from our engineer for sure. Take congressional pensions, take all those funds, move them back over to the Social Security Fund, and make them live under the same rules that they create. We're catching some calls right now, so I'm going to first go to our first caller. This is Brenda calling from Port St. Lucie. Brenda, we're going to have you on the air. Brenda, can you? Hey, Brenda, I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate you calling on this topic. It's kind of gloom and doom. What do you think? Is Social Security going to be there when people, next generation, go to retire? And is it presently in jeopardy? What are your thoughts? Yeah. 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 Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point, Brenda. Yeah. You know, yeah, I think you're hitting on something that's really a question of the century is, do we really need the government to save for us, or can we save for ourselves? And really, could it also be that maybe the money that's taken out of the paycheck every month, just to make sure that people, dedicate a certain amount of money towards retirement, could it go into private accounts? Really, really great points that you made there. I do remember some time ago that those were some of the conversations that were going around. And so it's something to think about. Now, as we pick up here where we left off on our last numbers here, our suggestions, we'll also later on in the broadcast here, we'll be talking about some ways to retire and so forth, and we'll make a few recommendations, right? So a couple other things that you always hear is, hey, Social Security is running out, Social Security is running out. Well, guess what? You never hear, hey, welfare is running out of money, right? Welfare is running out of money. Welfare's, we need to fund welfare. You never hear this, right? And so another recommendation is, hey, we could just totally chop welfare, move it over to the Social Security fund, and there's no reason that we should be taking money from people who work their whole life and paying into a system to give it to those who don't, right? So first of all, Brenda, great recommendations. I wanted to thank you for that input. If there are some other callers at 772-340-1590, if you'd like to give your 2 cents as well. So this is another topic that's a hot topic, especially has really been on the forefront this week with some legislation up in Washington, is close the border, cut off the money stream to those entering illegally. Essentially, some people are complaining, well, hey, it's taking jobs from Americans so that they can't get off welfare, they can't get off of government programs, and also it's draining the resources for repaying Social Security. Not to mention, some are saying, hey, this is a dangerous policy for our future. So that's another recommendation. I'll give you one more, and then we can kind of talk on this subject a little bit more. So reduce support for other countries. Now, compared to other nations, I don't know if you know this, but Sandra, do you know that the US spends more than any other government in foreign aid? Approximately, it's been an average of about $50 billion a year in foreign aid. Now, the most recent numbers, I think, came in at around 70 billion. So what do you think? I mean, is it selfish to say, hey, we shouldn't be taking our tax dollars and sending it to other people to improve their country and their people, when we have people that are struggling right now in the United States? What do you think?
I don't think it's selfish. I mean, all these people, American citizens have actually put in the work and have been, trying to make sure that they are able to retire. So they have the right actually to be able to collect when they get to a certain age where they cannot continue working. So I don't see it as a selfish thing. I see it as actually something that is earned because of the fact that they have actually put in the money.
They paid into it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the work.
Right. Well, it's a really great point. And if you really think about it, when we're talking about taking care of people, I mean, as a U.S. News and World Report had put out an article that talked about how many homeless people are in America right now, and we're at record numbers.
Mm.
Record numbers of Americans sleeping on the street. This includes veterans like myself who have served the nation honorably, and they're sleeping on the street. And at the same time, we have people, the poor of other countries, that we're putting in hotels, that we're funding to, get off the ground and so on. And this is a real problem. I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on. It's really unacceptable, and it's something that definitely needs to be considered. Definitely something that needs to change. Don't want to get political, but when it comes to certain policy issues that affect all of us as Americans, we have to call it out, and we have to really and sincerely look at what we're doing. And when you get to the polls, that's something that you should keep in mind. So definitely agree with you on that one. If you have any other opinions, we'd love to hear them. 772-340-1590. Now, we're going to get into a couple other details here. So being in the financial advising realm, right? there are different opinions on this. So I have to say that up front, right? So there are some folks that say, hey, just make sure it's part of your retirement, it's going to be there, and so on. They're a little bit more loose maybe than my position today. Some might say, hey, you're just exaggerating, it's not going to run out. But there are a couple major issues that I'm going to hit on today and in just a moment when we come back from our break that will maybe awaken you that you had not heard anywhere else, or maybe if you heard it somewhere, it's not in the mainstream media. So we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the two major issues that are coming that absolutely could deplete the system. Stand by.
Old money. Why is old money respected more than new? It's not because new money spends their fortunes outrageously and the old money gets jealous. Old money is respected because it has grown over time and is maintained over many, many generations. You see, most new money will be blown eventually or wasted by the second generation. And the descendants of new money just get poorer and poorer after that. But at Sun Palm Financial, we'll help you to create generational wealth that will grow with each new chapter. So if you've been fortunate enough to come into some new money, or right now to schedule your free consultation so that you can join the old club. Sun Palm Financial. Invest, grow, protect. sunpalmfinancial.com.
Dreams. What do your dreams look like? And how far are you willing to chase them before giving up? Or are you willing to stay the course to achieve them? Do you dare believe? Are you willing to work for them, strive hard, to never give up until they are realized? Are your dreams worth chasing? Well, if they are, welcome to Sun Palm Financial, a place where dreams become a reality. Whether your dream is to grow and to thrive towards the good life, or to simply experience freedom through financial security, come share your dreams with us. Sun Palm Financial. Invest, grow, protect. sunpalmfinancial.com.
You're listening to the Sun Palm Financial Broadcast with Sandra Liliana and Dave Cummings.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We're here at the Sun Palm Financial Broadcast where we talk all things money. I'm your host, D. Thomas. My clients call me Dave. And I'm here with my co-host, Sandra Liliana. And we've been talking about Social Security. We've been talking about the problems, some of the issues that are right before us, which is essentially saying that we're going to have the money run out by 2034, or the benefits will be exceptionally reduced. So we talked about some ways to maybe shore up the system that don't involve you taking a hit. Now, there are some folks in the financial realm that might say, hey, you're exaggerating, it's not going to run out. But there are some major issues here that maybe they haven't thought about, maybe you haven't thought about, and we're going to kind of address very quickly. And then we're going to kind of go into some recommendations for what you can do and kind of give an assessment of how we feel about it. Now, at this point, you should be already understanding that you must take control of your financial future, okay? You cannot rely on the government or anyone else to do that for you. So if you go to sunpalmfinancial.com and you click on, I think it's Meet With Us at the top, you can pick a calendar day that's available and just schedule a call. It's free consultation. We'll have a conversation with you. We can look at your financial picture. We can make some recommendations. If it's in the wrong place, we can move it to the right place. If you're not sure where to put it, or you're just getting started in the workplace and you need a place to start investing for your future, just reach out to us and we will absolutely help you out. So it's www.sunpalmfinancial.com. So now, for those who say, hey, you're exaggerating, it's not going to rent out, let's look at some pretty scary things. We talked about the border crisis that's happening and how we're deleting a lot of the funds that should be going back into the Social Security fund. Now, the second one, which nobody is even talking about, is the baby boomer generation is retiring. Why is this important? This is the largest population, which is where it got its name, baby boomers, that the US has ever had. So right now, if the system is already stressed from the last generation, what's going to happen when the baby boomers retire? So they're giving this a name. It's called Peak 65. Others are calling it the Silver Tsunami. It would be funny. It would actually be funny if it wasn't scary what's happening. So the numbers come in like this, right? So now a record number, the largest population of American history, is now hitting 65 in record numbers. So give you a quick study. The Alliance for Lifetime Income did a study, and it showed that approximately 4.1 million Americans are poised to turn 65 just in this year, 2024. If you do the numbers, that's 11,000 people per day that are going to be retiring. So if we're unable to support the current system, then how are we going to support this new batch? Also, Generation X, essentially, because the baby boomers just really took up a lot of the workforce, and many did not retire and still won't. So these Gen Xers may not have hit the numbers financially that they need to support themselves, and also may not be able to really support the up and coming. Now, there are some other generations behind them, but these will be the folks who are really carrying the burden here. And they only have about 15 years to invest in their own nest egg before they hit retirement. The other thing is, in Gen X's working lifetime, which I'm a part of, there have been two major, not small, but major catastrophic things that have hit the financial world. We had the 2008 crash, the Great Recession, and it is estimated that America lost half its wealth there, right? And now, right about the time everybody's recovering and getting back up to speed, what did we have? We had COVID. The entire country was shut down. And so obviously there has not been enough savings going out from Gen X. And so what can we do to prepare for the silver tsunami? We're going to make some recommendations. So let's start on a couple.
So saving for retirement, the 401k, that plan is an employer-sponsored defined contribution personal pension account. Some 401ks have their employer matching a certain percentage of your contribution. Some do not, but there are some rules.
Absolutely. So 401k, good thing to do. If your employer is, if you put in money and they match it, hey, that's great. That's free money, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good idea. But there's, of course, some rules there. For instance, why don't you hit on the maximum contributions and what those numbers look like?
So withdrawing money before age 59 and a half from a 401k can result in a 10% penalty. With Roth 401k distributions, early withdrawals are prorated between your contribution and the earnings share. For example, suppose you have $10,000 in your account consisting of $9,000 in contributions and $1,000 in earnings. If you took $5,000 from the account as an early distribution, you'd owe taxes and a penalty on $500 of the distribution, while the other $4,500 will be tax and penalty free. Traditional 401ks are funded pre-tax, while Roth 401ks are funded post-tax. The 401k contribution limits are $23,000 or $30,500 if you're 50 or older in 2024. These are called catch-up contributions.
All right, so you hit a couple things right now that are pretty important. So there's a contribution limit. You can only put so much into your 401k, and if you're 50 or older, you can throw a little bit extra. So $23,000 for 2024 is the maximum contribution you can make. $30,500 if you're over 50 is a catch-up. Now, IRAs, individual retirement accounts, kind of a similar situation there. So there are limits to what you can do and how much you can put into this. So the one thing about an IRA, which is great, of course, anyone can open one. You don't have to have an employer sponsored program. You can go down and open up, anyone really can open up these accounts. If you want to do a Roth IRA, that can be good for those who expect maybe a higher tax bracket later on in the future. So it's pre-tax dollars. Traditional IRA, you get taxed later. The cool part about these is, of course, after you retire, you can actually pass the IRA on to your heirs as a benefit. So that's kind of a nice thing. But of course, depending on the tax situation, you'll have to choose wisely how you think that you would like to go into that. But of course, one of the details there, as we're looking at the up-to-date research for 2024, they have a maximum annual contribution limit of $7,000, right? That's not a lot. And if you're 50 or older, you can throw an additional $1,000. So that's only $8,000 a year you can put at that. So those are two really big limitations there. So let's talk about a couple others. My favorite, real estate. Okay. So essentially, if you were to invest in real estate, you can put it as a rental, long-term or short-term. Keep in mind when you do that, your homestead exemption does not apply because it's now an income producing property. Yeah. You can also look in the buy, fix, and flip type of thing. Use your 1031 to avoid the taxes on capital gains if you're going to reinvest it and so forth. There are other options. You can sell your home and downsize. And that's one big thing that we see a lot here in Florida. People sell their house, they go to a condo, these kinds of things. And then there's also reversed mortgages. So real estate has some benefits that are there, definitely some things that you can think about. So for instance, if I were to buy a house now, and let's say 15, 20 years down the road, well, obviously that's going to accelerate in the growth, hopefully, if we don't have another crash, right? But we're going to see some progression there. So that might be a good way to invest. But who knows? So next one we have universal life and index universal life, some of these life insurance investment products. So why don't you talk about those?
So index universal life policy, for those who are young and don't have a lump sum to invest, that are not able to invest at this time in something like annuity or something like that, you're able to actually buy an index universal life policy. And index universal insurance lets the policyholder decide how much cash value to assign to a fixed rate account and an equity index account. Index universal life is a form of permanent life insurance, and like universal life, it allows for flexible premiums and possibly a flexible death benefit.
Great.
The index universal life insurance policies can track a number of well-known equity indexes, such as the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ 100 to earn interest credits. And the index universal life policy usually cap your returns, but also guarantee a minimum interest rate.
Okay.
Also, you're able to borrow against it without actually paying a fee.
Right. So if you were to take a withdrawal early, of course, that's a taxable event. Most would not want to do that, but you can borrow against it, kind of a loophole, and not pay it back. And then essentially you've skipped that whole part of things, but then you may reduce some of your benefits in the life insurance side and so on.
But also if it's for young people, life for everybody has its ups and downs. So at that moment where, at a time where it's actually down financially, it is actually a good thing to have that secured amount to be able to get it from.
Right. What about universal life? Not the index kind, but the fixed kind.
Insurance, a form of permanent life insurance with an investment savings element, plus premiums and a death benefit that are flexible. Unlike term life insurance, this type of insurance policy can accumulate cash value, and it earns an interest rate set by the insurance company, and it can change frequently, although there's usually a minimum rate that the policy can earn. Now, we will be talking more about this on our next show.
Right.
We also wanted to talk about upcoming seminars. We'll be giving the date, the time, and the place in our
Upcoming broadcast.
broadcast.
Yeah, so I'll hit on just a couple other things. And like Sandra said, we hit on these heavily in our seminars. And also when you call us, sunpalmfinancial.com, we go over all of these different types of products. But you have your stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Some of the issues that you can run into there, some market volatility. If you invest your money in there and the market crashes, which we have many examples where it has, you can lose principal. That's not a good retirement strategy, right? The other option, which has become increasingly popular, and it's odd, it wasn't really liked that much in the past because there were some fees associated with it and so forth. But now it has kind of grown into its own, the products have changed, is annuities. So we have fixed annuities where you're getting, I have one product, for instance, I think the latest numbers came out 6.5 to 7% for the rest of your life. Not a bad investment, principal protected. If the market crashes, doesn't really matter. And then you have others, if you want more for growth, we have the fixed indexed annuity. So in this one, kind of similar to the IUL that you mentioned, Index Universal Life, you put your money into this annuity, you have it basically tied to an index, S&P 500 or some other type of index. And as the market goes up and it's making lots of money, well, they're crediting you based on that performance. But if the market crashes, it doesn't crash. You have that amount that you saved and the earnings that you made when things were well, but you don't lose principal. And some of these products out here now, they also have a death benefit. They also have several different types of benefits. So for instance, if you happen to go to a medical emergency and you're in a confinement or care for a certain period of time, you can actually access the money without having to worry about getting charged fees. There are some that actually have 10%, some that may have no fees on withdrawals. A lot of different products out there. I think annuities in some cases got a bad name because there are a lot of people, and I can't stress this enough as we're wrapping up, there are a lot of people that they walk into their bank or they walk into their big name brokerage firm and they're only sold the products that that bank sells, or they're only sold the products that that big name brokerage sells, despite the fact that it may not be a very good product. This is why at Sun Palm Financial, we made it a point to be an independent organization, independent agency. We select the best out of all of the products that are out there. If they're not A-rated, A minus, A plus, or A, we don't even touch them, right? So we do all the legwork, we find the best, and then we present that. And this is a great thing that we do for our clients. Definitely reach out to us, sunpalmfinancial.com. And as we're wrapping up here, I hope that if there's one thing you learned from this situation, from this information that you've received, invest in your future. Any of the products we mentioned or any of the things that we've talked about, invest in your future. Don't wait for someone else to do it for you. You don't wait for the email from Africa that says, hey, your aunt over here, saved you $1 million or whatever. No. You need to invest in your future. That's something we can't stress enough.
Yeah, need to look for additional incomes. Not only your Social Security, don't depend only on that, but also your annuities and everything else that we have spoken about.
Absolutely.
Boy, that is a fast hour, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's really informative. So next week, they will be back for the Sun Palm Financial broadcast with Sandra Liliana and Dave Cummings. Invest, grow, and protect. Sun Palm Financial.